can hear you, and I believe you have a sea turtle hind foot on your wall.
I do, yeah. That's Dermot Kelly's hind flipper.
Hind
Or is
foot.
it? Is
They're
it?
not
Yeah.
flippers.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, yeah. Thank you for the
Yeah.
correction. I appreciate
Well, yeah.
that.
I mean, if you think about it, a flipper sort of looks like a wing, but
Right. Yeah,
if it looks like a catcher's mitt, it's probably not a flipper.
makes sense. And actually, come to think of it, this is not Dermot Kelly's. This is from Archelon. Um, there's
Oh,
a. Yeah, yeah. I was able to scale it down and 3D print it.
yeah, yeah. I was gonna say I've seen Archelon hind feet,
Yeah,
and
yeah. This is the one at I think at Senckenberg in
oh,
Germany.
that's an excellent
Yeah.
fossil. Yeah,
Anyway,
excellent.
we're live right now. I just want to make that
Okay,
clear. Um,
that's fine.
but yeah, everybody, this is Dr. Jeanette Wyneken. Would you like to introduce yourself real quick to the chat?
Sure. I'm Jeanette Wyneken. I'm a professor of biological sciences at Florida Atlantic University. We are located in the southeast part of Florida on the coast, and we're right across the street from loggerhead green turtle and leatherback nesting beach.
Right. Yeah. Super exciting. I think I said in the email, I was very jazzed to do this interview because your name comes up again and again and again throughout the literature and everything that I've been looking into with regard to leatherbacks. Your name is just ubiquitous. So it's an honor to actually be able to speak with you.
Oh, well,
Um, I really
thank,
appreciate
thank,
you taking
thank
the
you.
time to do this.
Yeah, thank you for your kind words. Yeah, I mean, we've been working with them now for, I hate to, part of the reason you get ubiquity is, you last a long time.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that helps. So,
Yeah. Um, I think I want to start off by asking you, uh, how did you first get into turtles at the outset? What brought you to the world of
oh,
Testudines?
Colonel. So, I grew up in central Illinois, not terribly close to the ocean.
Right.
Uh, and but we had, I had the British Museum toy dinosaurs, and probably
Ah,
one of the first things I learned to spell was the names that were embossed in the bottom of those plastic dinosaurs.
I have
And
some of those here in my office right now. I have the iguanodon right over there.
uh,
Yeah.
so I have a few in my office too. And
Nice.
anyway, it's I of course asked my mom, can't we get, we have cats, why can't we have a pet dinosaur too? And it was kind of like, well, that can't happen. And I think I was probably maybe three, maybe
Mm-hmm.
four, somewhere in there. And so the question really got answered by, how about a pet turtle? And my
Nice.
mother had a whole sequence of what we used to call dime store turtles, little red-eared sliders,
I've
and
read about this.
they'd feed them dried fly eggs, and they would eventually their eyes would get bad, and they'd quit
Uh,
eating and die. And so she says, well, they don't last real long. But
mm-hmm.
it turns out that even though my mother wasn't a biologist, she you know, believed in trying. And so we'd go to the library and learn what we could. And one of them was don't feed them dried fly egg.
Uh,
Uh,
yeah.
for ant eggs, there was the other one. Ant eggs were a little bigger, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So that was the first part, and the second part was the turtle. After a couple of tries with when you went to the pick out a turtle, there'd be a whole kind of tray of turtles that were not in great shape, but
Yeah.
you could buy the ones that had paralyzed feet or something like that for about half price, and
Mm-hmm.
which wasn't not much, and those did not do well, but probably they were really good trainer turtles for a little kid.
Right.
And then we about our third one was we finally got one that was not a uh, reject, and
Mm-hmm.
it was that one lasted 27 years.
Wow. And that's a red-eared slider.
It was a
Um,
red slider, yeah.
that is impressive. Shoot, there's
Yeah.
there's
So,
something truly remarkable about the longevity on these animals.
yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah.
and those were followed by box turtles. I still have one of my box turtles.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm trying to take good care of her. So,
That's awesome. So this has been a lifelong thing for you since the age of
yeah,
3. You've been interested in turtles. That's
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So they were my dinosaur surrogates.
Right. Yeah, and I can relate to that. I had a slightly different path. I really wanted to grow up to be a dinosaur when I was about 3 years old. I was
Okay.
told it wasn't really a viable career path, so I did the next best thing. I tried to become a dinosaur paleontologist, and
Awesome.
here we
Love
are.
that.
But yeah, it was a recent trip to Puerto Rico. I got to go last May, in order to investigate some family heritage, some family history stuff there, and there were marine turtle nests on just about every beach that I got to visit, including
Cool.
leatherback nests, and
Yeah. Yeah.
it was remarkable. I'd always known that these were extraordinary animals, but they never felt close to home until that moment. And so it's
Yeah.
like something clicked in me there, and like I have an
Excellent.
audience now on Twitch, and I want to do everything that I can to, to help conserve these animals. So again, I really appreciate you coming on the show today. And if you don't mind, we'll also have some questions coming in from the chat too,
Okay.
apart from the
That's fine.
questions that I sent you in the email. But I want to
That's,
stay on the dinosaur theme for just a minute here. Are there any particular dinosaurs that you were interested in? Any favorites from then
oh,
or from now?
uh, well, from then, probably, I mean, the one that looks most like a turtle was Ankylosaurus. Uh,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah, the Ankylosaurus. I realize there's more than one.
Uh-huh.
Um, yeah, I mean, that would probably be one that was appropriate.
They're very
I
cool. I work on those guys. We were digging some up back in September,
Oh,
in Utah.
cool,
Yeah.
cool.
Um, yeah.
Yeah,
Really
so
cool critters.
that's yeah, that's one, and I mean, who doesn't like the sauropods?
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's just so crazy, so big, and
Superlative. Just the biggest animals to have ever walked the earth. It's
yeah,
nothing
and
else even comes close. They're
yeah.
incredible.
So
Yeah.
and of course, I also have gone when I used to do shopping for Christmas at
Hmm.
Carol Biological. Of course, I bought a fake T-Rex tooth and
Right.
stuff.
Yeah.
You know, it just goes with the territory.
Absolutely. Yeah. Um, I mentioned this in our questions. As somebody who works on dinosaurs myself, who's just now getting into marine turtles, especially leatherbacks, I've been kind of surprised in that when I wear a dinosaur t-shirt, occasionally somebody that I run into on the street might comment on it, but it happens way more often when I wear like a leatherback turtle t-shirt. There's a
Oh,
real
I'm
charisma
wearing
about
a
these animals.
leatherback t-shirt, turtle t-shirt.
Beautiful, very nice, yeah. I've got
I
a
had to wear.
leatherback necklace on right
I
now, a
saw.
little
I
pendant,
saw.
yeah.
So I went back and I'm going. What should I wear? Oh yeah. So
Excellent. You came prepared. I really appreciate that. Yeah.
yeah.
What do you think it is about these animals that just fascinates people? Like, where does that charisma come from, you think?
Well, I think there's a couple things.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for me, it was another turtle, and it was for the longest time. It was a turtle I didn't think I'd be seeing,
Uh-huh.
uh, and of course, I ended up doing my dissertation work on them and going to the coast and getting out of
Right.
Illinois.
Uh-huh.
Um, so so it was some of it was the um, restricted accessibility was made
Mm,
it very
okay.
interesting, so you could read and read, but did you actually get
Sure.
to see 'em? Did you
Uh-huh.
actually get to, hang out with them? So that was part of it, for me. And then, when I was doing my dissertation work, being that I was reading about all kinds of turtles, not just
Uh-huh.
leatherbacks. It really put them in a good phylogenetic context.
Right.
uh, they're ancient and their lineage has been around a long time. So
Mm-hmm.
the current species probably have only been around to maybe 65, 67 million years, but
Mm-hmm.
um, their lineage is an old one. So that's you have to respect that. Uh,
Absolutely.
you know, what do other people care about? I mean, sea turtles are the biggest turtles.
Right.
And you're not going to find them in many zoos. You might find them in aquaria.
Mm-hmm.
So you might see, at a zoo, you might see, Galapagos tortoise or a Eldorado tortoise, but
Sure.
you're probably not going to see a sea turtle. So it's for most of the country and most of the world, it's a rare species or a
Sure.
rare set of species. And of course, the leatherback is the biggest, and it has
Right.
this weird shell. So,
Uh-huh.
uh, so there's a little, and it eats jelly animals. So in the ocean, and it dives deeper than I think the only thing up there with it are the sperm whales in terms of their maximum dive depth. So you just kind of
Yeah.
start going through the weird things. And it's like, whoa, is that cool?
Just
Um,
absolutely superlative in almost every
yeah.
way. They're
So
extraordinary animals. Yeah.
yeah, they really are. They really are. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned that they're not in zoos because I've been to, I think, three different zoos right now that had leatherback turtle sculptures on display. There's this acknowledgement that, like, here's this incredible animal that we can't keep in captivity, but like at the San Francisco Zoo, they've got a life-size leatherback model and it's painted just like the real thing. It's super lifelike.
Oh,
Um,
that's awesome.
it's really, really cool. Yeah. But I think that is a big part of it is just this idea that this is such an exotic creature. It's not part of people's daily experience, and it's almost like a legendary beast in a way, where
Yeah.
if people
Yeah.
get a chance to actually see one, it's a very memorable occurrence.
Yeah.
Um,
I would agree with that.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
even some days I just pinch myself going, think about what you're doing now and what you thought you'd be
right.
doing. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So,
That's really good to hear that you haven't become jaded about that because I know so many like, researchers who are at the top of their game and they run a lab and everything and it's not easy doing that kind of thing. So
no, it's
it's really
not.
good to hear that you maintain that sense of wonder, you know?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
If you don't, you need to change fields.
I
Yeah, I
like
mean,
that.
really,
Yeah.
nobody gets paid enough in this field
Yeah.
to get, you know, to lose their um passion.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
So, yeah,
And speaking of
you
which, I
better
have
have
a oh sorry, go ahead.
no, I said you just better have that. If otherwise, you get paid in passion. Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
passion for your questions, passion for your animals. Yeah,
Now, speaking of that, we'll return to this topic later as well, but I want to bring it up right at the outset. I put a special command in the chat today, so if anybody wants to type in exclamation mark guest, there's a little bit of information about Dr. Wyneken and also a link to the research fund that I found on the website, which was hang on just a moment here. I found this right before the broadcast today. But the Nelligan Marine Turtle Research Support Fund, is that the one that you were going to send me?
it. That's it. That's great.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It helps
So
pay for turtle food and tank repairs and you know okay every year because we bring about 300 turtles into the lab over the course of a year. Little
right.
turtles, not
Yeah.
the big guys. We're not a we're a research facility, not a rehab facility. So
Uh-huh.
all of our turtles hatch from local nests and for part of our long-term studies. And that they are in public view. We are our FAU Marine Lab, that's Florida Atlantic University's Marine Science Lab,
Hmm.
is located in City Park, and we have a visitors gallery where people can look down and talk to us while we're working.
Very
And
cool.
we try to keep all the information up to date. It's not just about turtles. It's we also have
Hmm.
colleagues and sharks and colleagues who works with corals and
Very
sea
nice.
lions and so on. So it's there's a lot of interesting stuff there on behavior, on evolution, and sex ratio work that we've been doing, and
Hmm.
it's yeah. So and we it's a pretty popular place and it's free. So since it's
That is so
free,
cool. Yeah.
that is, I'm always happy to say and by the way. If you want to help me feed the turtles with by donating, that's fine. I'm perfectly happy to do that.
That's awesome. Yeah. I'm really hoping to go at some point in the near future, but got to work some stuff out. I had a trip planned to Florida, and now that's kind of fallen through. So,
Yeah,
but it happened to be at the same exact time, I guess, as the big international conference on
yeah, yeah.
marine turtles.
You would have been far having a tough time because the International Sea Turtle
Exactly.
Symposium is in Hawaii this year.
Right.
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
first week in last day of February, first week of March,
Hmm.
and yeah, so all of us are flying far to well for some people it's not as far so uh,
Right.
yeah it's a big deal though it's and yeah I really learn a lot at that conference. I got enjoy sharing what I learned and
Hmm.
yeah so it's yeah it's a good thing but yeah not a good time to visit. We'll probably still have turtles in the lab. I do have one former student who's a technician
Uh-huh.
who is taking care of the turtles, so will not have released yet. But yeah,
Nice.
but it's much more impressive in something like July when we have leatherbacks, loggerheads, and green turtles in the lab.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, I'm rescheduling this trip, I hope. So
Yeah.
maybe something can work out, but we can talk about that another time. What I want to ask is with you doing all of this outreach and like having a lab where people can, look in the window and ask questions and everything,
Hmm.
what are some of the questions that you get most commonly, and which are the ones that you think illustrate misconceptions people might have about marine turtles?
Well, a lot of our turtle information is about temperature dependent sex determination. Um,
Right.
Animals do not have sex chromosomes. And so there's got to be another mechanism by which you get boys and girls.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the mechanism that most turtles have is you know what we would call hot chicks, cool dudes,
Right.
and that's warmer temperatures warmer incubation temperatures produce females, and
Mm-hmm.
cooler or less warm. We're in South Florida, so it's
It's pretty
warm and
warm
less,
all the time. Yeah.
um, can produce males. And I wouldn't say we produce a lot of males, but there are areas that do produce some males, thank goodness.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing fewer and fewer of them, but that's a different part of the story. But anyway,
Mm-hmm.
that people will say, well, why don't you just heat up the water or cool down the water? And it's like, no, it doesn't work that way.
Happens
So
in the
let's
nest.
talk about development. And so this happens in the nest, and the nest
Mm-hmm.
is underground, and it's not there's no mom babysitting that nest. It's a typical reptilian system
Right.
where mom comes in, digs the nest, deposits her eggs, covers it up, and leaves.
Uh-huh.
And it's really that nest is at the um, vagaries of the dealing with the vagaries of weather. And
Right.
so if we get all cloudy days and lots of rain, we might get some boys out of it. And if we
Mm-hmm.
get hot sunny days, well, that's a different story. That's a that's usually a girl nest. But we've been measuring temperatures, and we're unfortunately seeing a lot fewer years where we get any males. It's
Uh,
kind of scary. So
mm-hmm.
yeah, gotta have boys out there.
Right, yeah. I mean, I guess it's not the worst possible scenario in which there's no females, but
Yeah.
still, like you reach a critical low level of males, and you can get a population crash eventually, right? And that's one of those things that might be a quarter century out from now, when these turtles are actually mature. So like, there's a big lead time there, right?
I mean, these animals are, leatherbacks probably are maturing a little earlier than the hard shells are,
Mm-hmm.
or at least, the other two species that are on our beach, the loggerheads and the green turtles.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still, I mean, the supposition is leatherbacks probably mature somewhere around, depending on who you talk to,
Uh-huh.
12 to 17 as opposed to 25 to
Oh,
35.
okay.
And so there's still a lead time, and they also may not live as long. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know I've actually tried to figure out what the evidence is for them not living as long,
Hmm.
and it's a little tough. So
Right.
I think that's based more on, if you're working on a nesting beach and you're tagging leatherbacks
Mm-hmm.
don't change their tags very well, so you need a really good kind of backup system to identify individuals.
Mm-hmm.
Now these days, there's genetic fingerprinting, so can know who's nesting um, based on
Okay.
skin samples or blood samples.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is that we now know a lot about certain individuals, and you know did they they nested all let's say they nested every other year or every third year for 20 years and then they disappeared. Does that
Mm-hmm.
mean they only lived to be 35, or did they go to another beach? Because a lot of
Ah.
leatherbacks don't have tremendous fidelity. They have good fidelity to a maybe
Uh-huh.
uh 15 kilometers or 30 kilometers. Depends on kind of the size of the beach and whether it's continuous or not.
Right.
Um, but I mean, some of the turtles that we've looked at here in Florida, the ones that had transmitters on them,
Hmm.
you know, they may nest twice in Juno Beach and then go to Miami, and then
Interesting.
so that's is you know that's
Hmm.
sorry, I'm going to give this to you in miles
Uh-huh.
because that's why I think about
Fair.
it.
We have a lot of Americans in our audience, so that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it's that's somewhere along the lines of 80 miles minimum, and
Hmm.
then they may come back and nest across from where the FAU Marine Science Lab is,
Right.
and that's 45 miles south of where they nested to begin with, and then the next nest may be up in Jacksonville, which is 400 miles north,
Hmm.
and then they may come back to Juno Beach. So, it's there are some individuals that have good fidelity, but it's not, it's not like a green turtle where
Interesting. Okay. So
where you,
it
where you
is true
sort of,
for the Kalanian turtles. The hard shells typically have strong nest site fidelity, but
well, some of them do. It's
interesting.
more of an individual thing, and it may also be one of those things that they develop with age.
Uh-huh.
So, and there's been some good genetic work looking at did they, because of the genetic fingerprinting, you can figure out who mom was,
Uh-huh.
where did she nest, and then uh, you know, where's her next nest,
Hmm.
and it may be, or where's your first nest,
Right.
and that's really kind of cool stuff, and
That is really cool. Yeah.
yeah, and so it seems that some of them just really don't settle down, and some of them do.
Uh-huh.
Um, but the idea of coming back to the nesting site where you were hatched is, let's just say we would want to define nest site fidelity as what beach broadly defined are you on? Are you on the right coast? Are you on
Right.
if you hatched in Florida,
Uh-huh.
are you now uh, always in Florida, or do you sometimes go elsewhere? Excuse me.
Hmm. Really interesting. Yeah, and it kind of goes to what one thing that Scott Benson was talking about when we interviewed him at the end of December, and that individual leatherbacks, they have sometimes noticeably different personalities. Some of them are very chill when they get taken aboard the research vessel, and some of them are thrashing and fighting, and you know,
Yeah.
just the amount of individual variability there is interesting. And I guess it should be no surprise that that shows up in their nest site fidelity as well.
Yeah,
Interesting stuff.
yeah, there's some recent work done on I think it just came out in Science News about personality and whether that's important in conservation. And that, I'm
Uh
not talking about people, I'm talking about animals here. They weren't specifically talking about turtles, but
huh.
it was very interesting perspective. So
That is
yeah.
really interesting. Shoot, I'd love to take a look at that paper. I should see if I can
Yeah,
track that
yeah,
down.
I would say I haven't read the whole thing. My husband
Uh
told
huh.
me about it right before I went to bed last night, and it's like, oh, I better
Nice.
read. So
Right.
I didn't
No,
have
that's really
time to
cool.
get through it all. It's not that long, but it's just
Hmm.
a busy day.
It sounds like the sort of thing that'd be right up my alley. So I should definitely check that out.
Yep.
Um, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about mostly for the benefit of the audience. What are some things that make leatherbacks unique among not just turtles in general, but among sea turtles? There's a whole bunch of different characteristics that only they have, and
Yeah.
it totally sets them apart. So maybe we could do like a popcorn style back and forth, like
Okay.
you name one, I name one. Um, but yeah, like they don't have claws on their flippers, unlike all other sea turtles.
No, they don't have claws.
Hmm.
Um, they have these notches in their upper jaw, so that
Right.
it looks sort of like really. There we go.
I've got
Notches.
that right here. Yeah. The it's kind of
Yeah, they
this
look.
camera isn't picking it up super well, but
Yeah.
the tomial teeth, I think they get called sometimes, even though they're not teeth.
Yeah, they're not teeth, but
Yeah.
yeah, they look like sort of like vampires.
Right.
And
Yeah.
but if you ever have an opportunity, I don't recommend this, but if you have an opportunity to feel those jaws, they're very sharp. And
Interesting.
that's
Okay.
really, if you think about when you're a kid eating Jello,
Uh huh.
um,
Sorry.
no worries. I have one of those. I locked him out of the room.
Yeah.
Um, uh, yeah, otherwise he'd be in my lap too.
Hmm.
But yeah, they have. If you think about when you're a kid eating Jello and somebody gave you a spoon, It doesn't
Right.
work real well. But if you have a fork,
Something
so
pointy. Yeah.
kind of break it off, grab it and break it off. It works really well. And
Right.
it's think about doing that in water. So
Mm-hmm.
when I played with those a skull like you got
Uh-huh.
in water, it's like, oh gosh, this works really well.
Right.
So yeah, that's pretty cool. Pretty cool. So
That is
back to
really
you.
cool. Yeah. I've read that they don't have the same kind of beta keratin that all other sea turtles have, and like
They
that
have,
has something to do with them not having scales as well.
well, they have scales when they're young,
Right.
and
Yeah.
uh, and then they shed those, and the osteoderms, I'm going to call them osteoderms. I think that's still the
Sure.
correct term for
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
Um, is basically got a kind of a waxy skin over it. But as it's developing, you can see that because we keep them in the lab for several months, we see them go through that shedding period. It's always alarming when you come in and it looks like it's been raining black scales. It's like, oh my God, do we have a
Uh-huh.
glow? No, it's just growing. Um,
Right.
so we can, you can see that. And by the way, so there's two kinds of keratin. There's the alpha and beta keratin, and
Uh-huh.
one of them's strong but not stretchy, and the other's stretchy and not that strong. So think of
Gotcha. I'm guessing that leatherbacks have the latter.
yeah, they have the stretchy stuff.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
both, but they still have yeah. I'm not going to get into the biochemistry of keratin
Okay.
because first of all,
It would
beyond man.
sail over my head. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, but it's that's think about wool versus fingernails or baleen or something like that. So it's
Gotcha. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
really
Yeah. And
bird
that
beak.
kind of answers a
Yeah,
question that I had too, is like, do the scales get resorbed through ontogeny or do they slough off? And I guess
they
they just
slough
shed
off.
them.
They shed them. Yeah, yeah.
Interesting. About when does that happen as they're growing? Is it a
Uh,
size thing or an age thing or
yeah,
a
well, it's a size thing, and roughly around straight carapace length of about 7 centimeters. So they come in at about
okay.
four
Uh-huh.
uh, 4 to 5
Uh-huh.
centimeters. So when they've almost doubled in size, and they should look. You think of a turtle having a domed shell and a flat bottom.
Yeah.
Leatherback, if they have a flat bottom, they're not healthy. So they should look like more like little footballs. So
Interesting. Okay.
yeah, and
Yeah.
yeah, as long as they don't have bloat or something like that. A little football shaped leatherback's a nice healthy young
Right.
leatherback.
Yeah.
And yeah, and so they're all, if you think about it, that's a lot of shape change. I mean, they come in flat on the bottom and domed on the top, but
Uh-huh.
basically double in length, and body depth probably is also, I should have checked those numbers before I met with you, but yeah, probably twice the body depth they had when they were young, when they were hatchlings. So
Interesting.
yeah, so it's a flexible turtle, and
Uh-huh.
so that's that skin is different. It's got to flex.
Right.
So
Yeah. Yeah. And
so
that has to do with the compressibility at depth. I mean,
yes,
that's something that I still don't feel like I have a strong understanding of, is how that carapace works, because there's all these dermal ossicles that are underneath and they're
yeah,
almost like a mosaic of little coins or something, right?
yeah,
How would
but
you describe
they're
that?
well, they're really thin,
Uh-huh.
and so and they've got little edges to them, and it's not like skull um sutures. They're not
Right.
anchored together, and I when I've the few times I've pulled them off of dead turtles, which do not smell good enough. They smell awful when you
That's
can
what I've
pull them
heard, yeah.
off.
Uh-huh.
Um, and so what I notice is that it's hard to get a group that stays together.
Mm-hmm.
So from that standpoint, it's really, um, yeah, I think that's the part of the flexibility. The other part is that instead of having these wide ribs that are sutured together,
Mm-hmm.
um, the ribs still look like ribs. They start off like
Right.
almost like an embryo,
Uh-huh.
and so turtle embryos have ribs that eventually start to expand out as plurals, and the
Uh-huh.
plurals kind of ankles together. Um,
They fuse
and
up, yeah. Yeah.
yeah, so they do not do that. They retain ribs. They're pretty wide, but
Right.
they're still ribs, and so they're not getting that kind of solid plate of bone that
Mm-hmm.
are what you see in the hard shells.
Right. And with the dorsal vertebrae there, is there still some flexibility between them?
Yeah, there's
Um,
no, yeah, they have a lot of, every
that's
time
incredibly weird. Yeah, for a
I,
turtle, that's so bizarre.
yeah,
Because,
yeah, there's a lot of, I would say a lot of cartilage. When you
hmm
hold a leatherback vertebrae, it's not like a shark vertebra with,
right.
but it's it's just yeah, they when they're fresh, it's not, I'll just say it's not terribly hard to cut through them.
Hmm
And not that I'm not out slicing up leatherbacks,
No,
but
but in the practice
when a
of
dead one,
dissection or learning about their internal anatomy,
yeah,
yeah,
when a dead
yeah,
one comes in and we have to do a necropsy on it, then
uh-huh,
yeah, then I am sometimes slicing them up.
yeah,
And it's, I mean, it's the harder part to get through really is the blubber. So there's skin and then the dermal ossicles and then
uh-huh,
all this tissue that's fat and fibrous connective tissue. And
right,
that is tough to get through. It's flexible, but
uh-huh,
it's also kind of their insulation as well as
hmm
that's the big deal. That's tough. And then the bones are kind
right,
of just inside of that. The main bones, not the dermal ossicles. So
uh-huh.
yeah, it's kind of a crazy animal to work with.
They're so bizarre. Yeah. I want to ask you about the. Would you call it blubber? That subcutaneous fat like that? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. And that's
The
unique,
other
not
marine
just among
mammal,
turtles, but among like all non-bird reptiles today, right?
I
Like,
actually don't know. The only time I've come across blubber per se
uh-huh.
is in marine mammals. And
Right. Okay.
because it's not it. I mean, the marine mammal folks really have characterized it pretty well, but
Uh-huh.
the shorthand version is it's fatty, fatty tissue with lots and lots and lots of fibers in it.
Hmm.
And it's like I say, if you were to take a hacksaw and go through it, you would think, what's this? I mean, it's you can
Uh-huh.
saw
Right.
you don't enjoy the experience, but
Uh-huh.
uh,
Yeah. We saw that moment in the documentary Inside Nature's Giants where you had the person who was more familiar with cetaceans and she's like, I know this. This is blubber. What is this doing in a turtle? You know?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Really wild.
yeah,
Um, Just an incredibly cool animal.
yeah.
We had a question in the chat about does the flexibility have to do with deep diving there?
Well,
And I guess the answer is yes.
it has to, but it
Mm-hmm.
also these animals think about what they're eating,
Mm-hmm.
and there are a couple things. Yes, deep diving. Part of deep diving, we always think about pressure, but we also think about how cold it is down there.
Right.
And these are animals that are we could get to the whether they're heterotherms or homeotherms or
Sure. Yeah.
um, yeah, gigantotherms. But anyway, they
Mm-hmm.
generate a lot of heat with their muscle, and that heat is partially retained by the
Uh-huh.
fact that they've got this insulation. The other part of
Right.
it is that when they're not in breeding season, they are uh, going to very productive waters, which are usually cold or cold.
Mm-hmm.
So when they're down
We were
by
talking about
me,
like off the coast of San Francisco or
yeah,
Nova Scotia, right?
Nova Scotia,
Yeah.
Maine,
Uh-huh.
New York, even. It's water that I guess if you grew up there, you wouldn't mind jumping in, but I wouldn't want to. Cold
I wouldn't
water.
want to either, yeah.
Um, and but so they're feeding on high volume, uh, low calorie prey, and they
Uh-huh.
have to do a lot of that, and then that's their fuel for migration because
Mm-hmm.
they eventually it gets to the point where they have to get out of there. They have to go warmer to a warmer place. It may not be, sometimes it's south, sometimes it's across the pond, so to speak. They kind
Mm-hmm.
of some of the species, some of the populations kind of treat the ocean basin as a pond.
Right.
If you were talking to Scott Benson, you really have that appreciation.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, so it's kind of a it's serving multiple purposes. It's food storage, and actually,
Mm-hmm.
when you see a leatherback early in the nesting season, so these are again we're looking at females,
Uh-huh.
and they there are ridges going down the length of their carapace, and there's also ridges on the plastron
Uh-huh.
as well. Um, you almost can't see any trough in between them. It's like somebody, you
Right.
know,
Here I can
blew it.
demonstrate with a model right here of the
Yeah,
3D print. But
yeah,
yeah, so
yeah,
we've got a little bit of concavity right there between these. So
yeah. So that would be what a female would look at like towards the end of her nesting. So she's not feeding,
gotcha. Uh-huh.
depleting her energy, and so that's some of her food storage as well. So it's thermal insulation, it's nutritional storage, it's where or nutritional depletion as she's drawing down her energy there and
Hmm.
making eggs. And then, as they go north, they start building that up again. And when they leave those feeding grounds, they are plump. They as I mentioned, they look more like a football than
Right.
a tortoise or something like that. So
Scott was saying when they bring them aboard the research vessel, some of them that are particularly well fed, they kind of won't stay in place. They kind of wobble back and forth
they,
just because
they
that plastron
for
is
that
so
part
inflated.
about they don't have they shouldn't really be flat on the bottom.
Right,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. I
Oh,
wouldn't
that
want to
makes
be
me
the
wonder
person.
though, is that oh sorry, go ahead.
I said I wouldn't want to be the person who had to stabilize those because they're
Right.
big, big, heavy animals.
Yep. Yeah.
They're also very strong.
Hmm.
So,
Well, Scott was saying that these wobbly ones, like they have to try and secure them because they can actually rock the boat to the point where it gets dangerous
oh really?
if they're not secured
Wow!
in place. Yeah, he's like, we were kind of afraid that we were going to capsize or something.
Holy
So
cow!
yeah.
Yeah, that's a
And these are again Pacific leatherbacks. I don't think they even get quite as big as they do in the Atlantic, right?
well, the East Pacific ones don't. I have to
Okay,
say, I don't know as much about the size of the West Pacific ones. So
gotcha. Okay,
a lot of his work. I mean, I'm positive he's been around East Pacific leatherbacks, but
yeah,
Western Pacific ones are the ones I know about his work about. So I have to
right.
say I don't I just always assumed they were sort of like Western Atlantic ones,
Uh huh.
different part of the ocean basin. So uh
Okay,
I may be wrong. So
yeah.
that's okay. Yeah.
I mean that to me is one of the things that's so cool about leatherbacks in particular is that there are so many things that are still unknown about them. Like almost I'm not going to say basic aspects of their biology, but things that you would think we would know already.
Hmm.
Um, like we talked about the lost years, and you were instrumental in helping solve that problem, figuring out where these turtles go right after they hatch. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's just they almost remind me of like a fossil critter in that sense, where there's big aspects of their life history that are still kind of mysterious.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, if I still feel like there's a lot we have to learn about them.
Hmm.
And so tracking little leatherbacks, part of the challenges was for the longest time the little tags.
Uh huh.
And now that there are good little tags out there, we can do some tracking. But what do you how do you attach something to a leatherback? When I mean
Yeah.
the big ones, they have the big ridge and they can you know put anchors in that pretty easily
Yeah.
and
So there's actually like a mechanical piece of hardware that goes through the keratin or
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so
Um
but the little guys, they're growing fast. I mean, when we were talking about, when do they start shedding? Well,
uh-huh.
that that's doubled in size is probably about 3 to 4 weeks old. So
Shoot. Which is a remarkably fast growth rate for a non-bird reptile. I've
great.
read in multiple places that it's really difficult to age leatherbacks
Yeah,
using like histology just because they're so heavily vascularized. Can you tell us
they're
a little bit
heavily
about that?
heavily vascularized, and there's a lot of cartilage in them still.
Right. Yeah.
I think
Um,
most of the aging has been done with the sclerosicles.
right,
And
in the eyes. Yeah.
asked me if I want to do that, and it's like that's an art. It's a science, but it's also an art. I
Because I mean,
talked
even on the largest individual, the ossicles can only be like maybe a little bit
well,
bigger than a grain of rice or a bean or something.
uh, no, they're probably like a little fingernail or something
Oh,
like
okay,
that,
okay, yeah,
little little plates. But I mean, think about it. With histology, you're just doing histology on bone, and
right.
just that in itself is you're probably more comfortable with that than I am. And yeah, it's one of those things where if you're doing histology on a hard-shelled turtle bone,
Hmm.
um, it's there you can get some aging as well, but um,
Right.
it's easier to think about the rings on a humerus than it is the rings on sclerosicals, but it's still a histological section, which is tiny, so
Right.
it's a tiny sample, so
Hmm.
less stuff to throw away. So
For sure. Yeah. And the
yeah,
cartilage is something I find really interesting as well. It kind of plays into this theme about them being really flexible, but I've looked
yes.
at different photographs and even different 3D scans of Kelly's skulls, and they're wildly different, in large part just based on preparation. Like in this specimen, they took the cartilage off, and this one they didn't, and it completely changes like the whole front of the face.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I've got one that we prepared
Uh huh.
probably 25 years ago, and the other bones I have to keep on top of, but the facial bones are really, if I didn't leave the skin and the cartilage there and let it just dry,
Mm-hmm.
that would have been a nightmare. So yeah,
You mean it would have fallen apart, or
yeah, because some of the bones are just kind of sorry.
no? You're okay.
That's a phone that I can't
Yeah, no worries.
turn off. So that's an actual old-fashioned phone, but
A landline, even.
well, my husband doesn't
Nice.
do well with cell phones,
Uh
so
huh.
we still have a landline.
That
So
that might be the smarter way to do things, honestly, especially nowadays. But yeah, um, no, it's really interesting. There's a one scan that I found the other day of a Kelly's skull, and they've got these like metal staples in there just to hold like the frontal bones to
mhm.
the other bones. Just otherwise, I guess the whole thing would just fall apart, and that's different from other sea turtles, from the Kalaniids, right?
Yeah, I would say the sutures are just really loose.
Uh huh.
Um, you know, I have a couple of skulls to put back together, and
Mm-hmm.
probably I'll have to wait till I'm retired before I have time to do it. I mean, I've put together fish skulls before, and it's probably
Oh man. Ugh.
resembling, and the brain case on a fish is usually pretty good, and so
Uh
you
huh.
at least have, something to anchor things around. But
Okay. Yeah.
on a leatherback, it's even the brain case is really loose. So
Right. Yeah.
kind of
No, it's
crazy.
interesting when I pick this one up, the cast that I have. I think this is from Bone Clones, but
Yeah, they
even
did a good job.
this, yeah, it's like I have to be really gentle when I do it because there's different parts that are flexing, even in a
Yeah,
resin model like this.
yeah, yeah,
Um, it's epoxied together, but still, there's a good deal of flex there. It's kind
yeah.
of surprising.
It's another piece of their body. You kind of wonder about, geez, when they're going down, you think about the pressure on the shell, but there's also pressure on the flippers. There's also pressure on the jaw,
Yeah.
and there's pressure on the head and the eyes and all that crazy.
Mm-hmm.
It's these are
You think
these are
that
different beasts.
right? Yeah. Do you think the skull itself is actually flexing a tiny bit too in order to keep from
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah,
wild?
yeah,
That's
yeah,
so crazy. That is
yeah,
so cool. Um,
yeah.
well, maybe this is a good time to jump into their physiology because this is something that uh, you've done a lot of work on this. When I'm talking with my audience about metabolism,
Hmm.
we've got a pretty good understanding now that most dinosaurs were probably close to being warm-blooded. Birds evolved from dinosaurs. That's probably where they got their endothermy from.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but leatherback turtles kind of almost defy categorization when it comes to
I
metabolism.
I
Yeah,
agree with that.
can you walk us through that a little bit?
Well, all right. So when we think about the idea of heterothermy, that just means that the body temperature varies,
Mm-hmm.
and homeothermy, it means it doesn't. So we're
Stays
homeotherm.
constant, yeah.
Your
Yeah.
dog and cat are homeotherms.
Mm-hmm.
Or so
Yeah, what
endothermy is generating your heat from within. So
right.
leatherbacks are sort of endothermic when they're adults. So
Sort
that
of
blubber,
warm-blooded, I guess is the term
yeah,
that people in the audience
yeah.
would be most familiar with. Yeah. Yeah.
When they're when that blubber layer is there, when they've
Uh-huh.
got their muscles are big, and we all know that if you're cold, go exercise, go run down the street or jump rope or
Mm-hmm.
um, if you really want to, you know, warm yourself up, do something with your big muscles, your the muscles in your legs.
Right.
And so we all kind of have some feeling about that, that muscles generate heat,
Uh-huh.
and they do. And with leatherbacks, that ability to kind of trap that heat inside is works great as long as they're big enough. But in
Uh-huh.
these little guys, the little ones, they're not that big. When we bring them in the lab, they fit in the palm of my hand,
Right.
and by the time we release them, they still fit in my hand. But
Uh-huh.
it takes the whole hand. And so those animals are, you know, the temperature of the water. So,
Mm-hmm.
they and they're if they're hanging out at the surface, they're a black turtle, so they're gonna heat up.
Sure. They're
Um,
getting that solar radiation and warming up
yeah,
from that.
they're
Yeah,
gonna.
yeah.
But yeah, that's so there's a limit to that idea of you know,
Right.
endothermy. So they, yes, if a little leatherback is swimming, its muscles are heating up, but it doesn't have enough insulation. It doesn't have enough body volume to trap much heat.
Uh-huh.
And whereas the surface area, it's that kind of classic thing that for those people who've gone to, a biology class or a physics class, or, you
Uh-huh.
learn the surface to volume ratio
Yep.
idea. And as you get to be a bigger um, surface, you have more volume. You have
Uh-huh.
a greater volume, and so uh, when you're a smaller animal, your surface to volume ratio is not hugely different. It's different, but it's
Mm-hmm.
your volume is always going to be bigger than your surface, but not by as much as you would expect,
Sure.
or might without thinking about it and doing a back of the envelope calculation. So
Uh-huh.
anyway, that component of their life is, endothermic. Are they endothermic? Part of the time they are.
Uh-huh.
Are they endothermic? Certainly when they're young. That's probably why we don't see them in really cold waters for any length of time.
Uh-huh.
And and if we get a leatherback stranding, a young turtle stranding, it's usually during the part of the year when the waters are cooler, and
Mm-hmm.
so yeah,
Do you get
they
that
have.
in Florida? Are there leatherback strandings due to cold?
Yeah, occasionally. Well, not
Really?
not so much cold stunnings as like if
Oh.
they get a little leatherback stranding, it's almost always going to be in December or January.
Mm-hmm.
If we get I mean, when I say little leatherback, something like this big,
Uh-huh.
as opposed to this big,
Right.
or
Yeah.
more than
Yeah.
I can cover.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so it's they're certainly leatherback strandings. They're not common. And
Mm-hmm.
say I think I've had what, three live leatherback strandings, and they've always been in December. Um, and
Interesting.
yeah, well, that's not true. One of them came in after a hurricane.
Mm.
Um, he was walking the beach after a hurricane and found this turtle on its back, and that was
Oh.
something had bitten off part of its flipper. So we knew how to feed it, and then
Mm-hmm.
it got released once it was eating. And yeah, I mean, that was these days we don't do any rehab. This was before we had 300 turtles in the lab at a time,
Right.
so
Yeah.
because we do
Yeah.
know how to feed. So
I want to ask too about you said that you release all of the leatherbacks when they get to be roughly like the size of your hand.
yeah, they're well, part of that is the reason the turtles are in the lab is so we can sex them, and
Mm-hmm.
endoscopically sex them.
Yeah. So
And
determine whether they're male or female because that sex ratio is really important to their
yes, it
survival.
is. Yeah,
Yeah.
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 Yeah, that's why I get indigestion when we don't find any boys. Um,
Right. Yeah. Uh,
yeah, so that's one of the so in order for them to do that safely,
mm-hmm.
um, the animals when they hatch, they look like a turtle wearing a beach ball. It's wrapped around
They're
this yolk,
folded up, right? And they're
folded around it. It's like they're hugging a beach ball,
right.
and
Yeah.
that's the yolk, and
Mm-hmm.
that's the beach ball part. And
Mm-hmm.
it takes a couple of days for them to internalize that yolk. And
Huh.
so they do internalize it, and the plastron mostly flattens out.
Right.
And but when we bring them in the lab, they don't, we talk about, well, that's the brown bag lunch from mom that gets them offshore, but
Uh-huh.
they don't eat, for about 5 to 10 days.
Okay.
And that's all about, when you think about it, that turtle just sucked in a massive quantity of yolk. It
Uh-huh.
smashes the intestine up against the carapace.
Uh-huh.
And so they have to use a lot of that. And so a big part of why we release them at this size is
Mm-hmm.
because I need to be able to go in there with a little endoscope and not hit that yolk.
That makes
So
sense. Yeah.
we're waiting for that yolk to be. I mean, could we tell what they were if that yolk wasn't in the way? We could tell when they were hatchlings, but at
Right. Okay.
that point, the turtle knows what it is,
Mm-hmm.
uh, or its body sort of knows what it is. But
Mm-hmm.
uh, yeah, that's kind of the foundation of that. Then when we started doing satellite tracking,
Mm-hmm.
uh, the satellite tracking, there's kind of a rule you don't want to exceed, 5 to 7% of body weight with your tag
Right. Don't want to
and
weight
your
them down too much.
and
Yeah.
yeah. And so,
Yeah.
I mean, we're getting tags that are much smaller. And when I did that work with Kate Mansfield, from University of Central Florida,
Uh-huh.
uh, we those were 9 gram tags, and by the time you put the adhesives on to keep them
Mm-hmm.
on turtles, that's makes it up to about 12.
Shoot.
Yeah, so you kind of go, well, I better have a 300-gram turtle handy here. So
Right.
ask me if I like keeping them to 300 grams. No, because they're expensive to feed.
Right.
Um, they take very special water treatments, and
You have to
they're
keep them tethered in place too, in order to keep them
yeah,
from.
yeah, they
Can you
don't
talk about that
recognize.
a little bit? Because that's, I think people would find that fascinating.
Yeah, most turtles, they may swim against the edge of the tank, but they
Mm-hmm.
recognize it's an edge, and
Right.
they stop. They would hurt themselves, but leatherbacks never learn. At least in our experience, they never learn the size of the tank.
Right. They've
Or
been
if they,
swimming in the open oceans for 80 million
yeah,
years. Like
yeah,
they've
if,
evolved past the concern
yeah,
for boundaries like that. Yeah.
yeah. So if you think about it, yeah, boundaries are the only time they're going to run into them is when they leave the beach and when they come back, when the females come back to reproduce. Males
Right.
shouldn't run into them at all. So, yeah, so in order to gain the sex ratio data and it's also some behavioral data,
Mm-hmm.
um, was not kind of is important.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the it's you gotta make make the world not have barriers, and
Right.
so we tried some things like making a bubble net
Uh-huh.
around the tank, and they swam right through that,
Uh,
and yeah, the thing that worked out was putting them on a leash.
uh-huh.
They
So
could
how does that
swim
work? How do you affix that to the back of a baby leatherback?
toupee glue.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who came up with that idea?
Hey,
That's so creative. That's excellent. Yeah.
that's what happens when you come back from the beach and you're covered with sand at night.
Uh-huh.
And so you take a shower and you're all wet, your hair's wet. Um, and the
Uh-huh.
last thing you do is go to bed yet. So turn on the late night TV so you don't fall asleep on the floor or the couch and wreck
Uh-huh.
stuff. And I was watching TV one night and at like 2 in the morning, and there was an ad, and it was for I don't know if it was Hair Club for Men or something like that. But here's this
Uh-huh.
guy on a jet ski with some lady on the back of the jet ski hanging on to his hair, and it's like I need that glue. Um,
Yeah.
and so we did a lot of cajoling of uh, cosmetologists, and finally
Uh-huh.
somebody let us contact the company,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and yeah, it's
That
worked
that
out. I tell you, yeah, the first couple of years when we bought that stuff,
uh-huh.
the salesperson on the other end was not sure, and I'd send them
If you were
photos.
joking or they thought you were pulling a prank?
Yeah, And, but I mean, I'm using a university credit card, so
Yeah. Yeah.
they better pay attention. Um, so, yeah, and now there's no problem. So
Right. That sounds like it could be a lucrative sponsorship deal if
I
somebody could
wish,
wrangle that.
I wish. Yeah,
Uh,
thinking outside the box is how you make progress.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. That is so funny. Um, so we were talking about the development of leatherbacks, as they're growing and maturing.
Yeah.
At what point does their adult coloration start to show up? And is it unique to individuals or is it pretty
Yeah.
uniform? Like what's the process there for them developing those characteristic spots?
Well, the spots start off there at some level. We do see that we did see it in the 300-gram animals. I had an opportunity to go work with the Thai people who have really, I mean, they're wonderful at raising animals.
Uh-huh.
Animals,
This is in
especially
Thailand?
in Thailand. Yeah, I think
Very cool.
there's a government lab there where they are able to raise a few leatherbacks every year, and
I've seen them. They get pretty big in there. It's
yeah,
impressive. Like,
yeah, it's very impressive.
yeah.
And those animals have their spots. So yeah. The short answer is somewhere by before the end of the year, they have spots. I think the ones I got to see were and work with were maybe 8 to 10 months old.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, so they were you know they had their colors, and
Mm-hmm.
some of them were more spotted than others.
Mm-hmm.
Every once in a while, you'll find one that has virtually no spots when we see them on the beach. I mean,
Uh-huh.
we're in South Florida where you're not allowed to use white light on the beach,
Right.
and so we have to use red light, and it's a little harder to see the spots on them.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's a real they have individual spots. They also have this unpigmented area on the top of their heads
The
over
pink
the
spot, yeah. For the
yeah,
of the
over the
pineal eye. What's that
yeah.
about?
Well, that's a they that area is it's a neuroendocrine organ, and
Mm-hmm.
it's sensitive. It doesn't have a lens or anything like that, but it has if you were to take a leatherback skull and cut it in half, there's
Mm-hmm.
this like this cone-shaped area right over where that pineal is, and
Right.
it's sensitive. That area, instead of being solid bone, it's
Mm-hmm.
solid top, but it's like a cartilaginous white window,
Uh-huh.
and the pineal's in that cone of cartilage, and
Mm-hmm.
so it's clearly, and you can hold that skull up to the or the head. You take all the visceral part or the muscle and brain out. You can hold it up, and you can see that the light will penetrate that.
Wild.
So
It's like
that
translucent.
unpigmented area is that some people have used that photos of that pink spot to
Mm-hmm.
identify individuals.
Interesting. So the pink spot itself can be it's unique among
Yeah, yeah.
individual turtles. You can almost like a fingerprint or something like that. That's
That's
really cool. Yeah. There was actually a new paper that just came out, I think last week or the week before, looking at fossil critters. Some of the first chordates, some of the first like vertebrate ancestors, have been found with, and they've got two little spots right there. So it's not that was originally like a paired eye, and then later on, like before you get to tetrapods and amniotes, it converges to one, and then some critters still have
yeah,
that, like the tuatara.
yeah,
And yeah, it's just fascinating. Is it more pronounced in leatherbacks than it is in other
yeah.
marine turtles?
Yeah, yeah, it's, I mean, the others have a
Uh-huh.
pineal, but, yeah, that one, like I say, it's like somebody, developed this, and honestly, it literally looks like somebody said, "Let's make sure that this structure gets some light,"
Uh-huh.
and yeah, it's like I say, it's more like it's a neuroendocrine organ that's responding to like day length
Uh-huh.
over long periods of time. So it's not, like if you shine a flashlight on it, you're going to be causing a problem.
Right.
Uh,
But it's a way to basically tell what season it is and when is it
yeah,
time to go to the
yeah,
feeding grounds versus the nesting grounds, that kind of deal.
exactly. You're right on, spot on. Good job.
Interesting. Yeah. Um, Yeah, and I guess that might make more sense for leatherbacks to put more investment into a structure like that, um, because they've got the, as I understand it, the longest migration of any marine
Yes, they
turtle by
all
far, right?
absolutely. Yeah, they're going over, massive amounts of latitude.
Uh huh.
And yeah, so that means that you might have a long day length in the during the feeding early part of the feeding season, but that day
Mm-hmm.
length down and drop down, and then as they move south or southeast or southwest, they're gonna experience significant changes, and you know, as, as you go closer to the equator, the days are closer to 12 and 12,
Mm-hmm.
12 hours, like 12 hours um, of dark. Whereas if you're up at latitude 37 or 38,
Uh
you know,
huh.
you might have days that get light at 5 in the morning and get dark at 10 at night, and
Mm-hmm.
but when that starts changing, that's a signal, and part of that
Right.
signal, get the heck out of there before it gets cold.
That's really
It,
interesting.
they, that may, it may not be that abrupt, but
Uh huh.
that may it also probably is when the food supply is starting to move as well.
It's gonna be a combination of those things, like day length change, and then when the food starts to disappear. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Um, I want to ask you a little bit more about leatherback anatomy. We've talked about, I and my audience have talked about how to tell the difference between a male and a female leatherback. Tail length is the obvious thing, where the males have got this long tail, and Scott Benson was actually telling us that it almost seems semi-prehensile in the sense that like when they get one onto the research vessel, he's like, yeah, sometimes if you're too close, they'll like wrap their tail around your leg and try and
Yes.
use it for leverage if they're trying to get off the boat.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. The
so that
males have a prehensile tail. It's
yeah,
much more. I would say it's much more obvious in the hard shells. Uh,
right, yeah,
and that's all about controlling the female's tail. And
mm-hmm,
yeah, I mean the leatherbacks that we've admittedly I've not seen a lot of them, and everyone that I've seen has been dead when it's a
mm,
male.
mm-hmm,
uh the females I see all the time, but the females have a pretty long tail as well.
right,
And
yeah,
if we get an animal, a dead animal that looks like a male, I'm always looking for not only how long is the tail, but where's the
mm-hmm,
cloaca? Is it closer to the end or is it closer to the plastron? So the females have
gotcha,
cloaca closer to the plastron, the
mm-hmm,
males have it closer to the end of the tail.
mm-hmm,
And yeah, that's so, again, that sort of makes sense. The males are on, climbing on her back.
uh-huh,
You've got to get that tail in position. And
right.
so the prehensile part is probably part of that. The other part is just having that cloaca
That
near
makes
enough
sense.
female.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Now, I
with
wonder too if
little
the
geometry,
males. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
little geometry.
Yeah, yeah. Well, speaking of geometry like that, I know in some species of terrestrial tortoise, the males have kind of a concave plastron to make it
Yes, some
easier
of
to get
them.
up onto the female. Do leatherbacks have anything like that, or is it
I don't think
uniform between males and females?
well, other sea turtles, when the males are in breeding condition, they have
Mm-hmm.
what is affectionately known as a floppy belly. Uh,
uh,
the plastron becomes almost sponge-like. I mean, the skin is not porous, but
uh-huh.
touch it, it's like, wow, somebody put padding in here. And if you were to think about, the males climbing on the females and being
Mm-hmm.
able to not only hang on, but you know, not rock off, I guess,
Sure. Yeah.
able to actually cling to the female and they're fairly stable.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's yeah, I'm sure that's part of the success of that, because that you only see that in mature males or
Right.
mature males that are um, and admittedly, I have not seen a male leatherback in breeding conditions, so I'm not
Interesting.
not
Okay.
going to be able to comment on
Uh-huh.
whether they have that what we call a floppy belly or
Right.
not. I mean, they're
That
they're already flexible enough; they may not need it, but I don't know.
sure.
You know, you don't see it in other turtles other than
Uh-huh.
sea turtles, as far as I
Well,
know.
because all
So,
of the other marine turtles, they've got big bony plastrons, like with
oh yeah,
these.
Yeah.
they're very inflexible, right? Whereas with a leatherback,
Yeah.
what is the plastron like? Could you describe that to the audience?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about what a real hard-shelled sea turtle plastron is like in an adult.
Yeah.
It's, it's plates of bone that, two plates of bone like this, and a
Hmm.
couple plates of bone up in the top, and a couple plates of bone in this, and they're is it when you get near adulthood, those are not as firmly put together as like a tortoise would be.
Sure. Yeah.
No, there's some, some play, and then there are these little spike-like ends. So I talked about this side, the other side
Right.
sort of like that as well. And there's some spikes that go into the peripheral bones on the carapace, anteriorly and posterior, and that there's some flexion of that, during breathing.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so I always think about it as the plastron flexes relative to the carapace, or those joints are flexible.
Gotcha.
Leatherback leatherback plastron is crazy. It looks like somebody started to draw a line around the plastron. They're little thin bones, even on these really big ones.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's almost like it was so most of the plastron is blubber.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, it's basically that's.
Wild.
I mean, there bone there? Yes.
Uh-huh.
It's almost like an afterthought.
Right.
So
Yeah. And I guess it makes sense given that these animals are diving to extraordinary depths.
yeah,
Yeah, it's interesting that like so much of this animal's anatomy is built around that concept. Like we've got to be able to compress and be flexible. Um, I want to ask you if that's also true, not just for adults, but for juveniles too. Like,
yeah,
are baby leatherbacks behaving differently from the hatchlings of other marine turtle species?
yeah.
Interesting.
And for
Okay.
starters, they're behaving differently. That Yeah, the baby leatherbacks are capable of diving. I mean, when early in my career, when I didn't have a lot of grant funding, I didn't have any grant funding. One of the things we did was follow little hatchlings offshore,
Uh-huh.
and we'd get leatherback hatchlings that would dive down, you know, somewhere along the lines of some between 10 and 20 meters, uh,
For a
and
baby turtle.
baby turtle right out of the nest. And and the
That's
only thing
nuts.
I
Wow.
knew that was I was, we always had a safety boat in the water,
Yeah.
and the depth finder, and you could see the turtle kicking up sand, and from the bottom it was like, how deep is it here? Oh, 45 feet. Okay, let me do the math here. Holy cow. You
Yeah.
know, and, when did they come up? And then, they come up, take a couple breaths, go back down.
Uh-huh.
So, you don't see a little loggerhead or a little green turtle doing that. So
Right. Yeah. So
different,
that
different.
deep diving is something that they do their entire lives. Like right after they hatch, they're doing that. It's kind of
Yeah,
integral
yeah,
to their
yeah.
ecology. That's really interesting. Are they
Yeah.
doing that to evade predators, you think? Because they're not finding food at that sort of depth, are they?
Well, no, when they're hatchlings, no,
Yeah.
they still got that belly full of yolk.
Uh-huh.
Why do they do it? I mean, it's certainly different predators.
Mm-hmm.
If you're down kicking up sand on the bottom, you might wake up a triggerfish or something.
Sure.
Um, and triggerfish may have a small mouth, but it's a very sharp one. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, or disturb a shark. I mean, they're pretty vulnerable. They don't. The only defense they have is getting out away from shore.
Mm-hmm.
And when they get out away from shore, they're basically distancing themselves from areas with structure. And
Gotcha.
so that, and unlike the hard shells,
Mm-hmm.
they're not going and hanging out in flotsam, floating.
Oh,
Um,
they're not. Interesting.
Matter of fact, if we've all done other studies where we were looking at development of diving behavior, and
Uh-huh.
turtles were going. Uh, we do get influxes of sargassum in the June, July, and August. It sort of dissipates,
Uh-huh.
but there's nothing more pitiful than a leatherback that swam into a patch of sargassum, because they just sit there and
Uh,
go flap. Because
uh-huh.
yeah, and when we've had them in the lab, and we kind of ground up some sargassum, and filtered it out to see what they were responding to, that you put that stuff in the water, and they're doing backflips. They want to get away from that. They just
Interesting.
really do not want anything to do with float. Their world is surface underneath, surface
Right.
underneath.
Just in the out in the blue void, like completely away from any other objects or anything like that. Yeah,
They're all about staying away from things that get in their way.
that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, and that reminds me of I was watching an older documentary a while back where there were some researchers. I think Scott Eckert might have been one of them.
Yeah.
But they were trying to figure out if there was some kind of sonic device that they could attach to fishing nets in order to keep leatherbacks from getting caught in these gill nets.
Yeah.
Do you know? I guess I'm segueing into leatherback conservation and what we can do to help protect these animals. Did that ever go anywhere, or did that whole project just kind of?
I don't think the sonic stuff has worked out.
Mm,
We did some work in the lab. When I say we, my husband also works with leatherbacks, and his
oh,
graduate
nice.
student did as well. And
Uh huh.
when we get them in there trying to raise them up, let's make them work because they're expensive to raise. They cost, they used to
Yeah.
say they $1,000 a turtle to raise, just for 3 months or something like that.
Uh
And
huh.
it's kind of at this point, and we're now looking at like $1,500 a turtle. So
Wow.
it's it's an effort, and then most of that is because they're eating, um, this high volume, low calorie prey, and
Gotcha.
so that you have to feed them multiple times a day, and it has to be clean, and I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's just, and they're normally out in blue water, and you have to keep them tethered, and
Right.
all these fun things.
Uh huh.
So anyway, we try to learn as much as we can from them, and one of the things we were trying to find out was, there was for a long time, there was a lot of concern about the longline fisheries
Mm-hmm.
up in, off of, uh, Massachusetts and, uh, Maine and off of Canada, and, the bycatch in those areas were primarily young loggerheads, and when I say
Mm-hmm.
young, the size versus adults.
Sure.
Um, and, and leatherbacks. And a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
leatherbacks were not, um, they're not hooked in the mouth, they're foul hooked, which
Uh.
made it seem like, well, those long lines, a lot of them have lights on them.
Mm-hmm.
So were they being caught because they were attracted to the lights, or were they being caught because they were attracted to the bait? And I don't know that
Right.
we ever got a really good answer on that.
Uh huh.
But there were some lights that were less attractive to them than others. So we were testing little guys in the lab,
Uh
and,
huh.
extrapolating up from there. And yeah, so that was, so the short answer is, um, gill nets certainly are a problem, especially off of like French Guiana and Suriname and that area.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and more, when you're trying to go north, there's entanglement in lobster pots.
Right.
The, the good news the good news is a lot of, the fishermen don't want to catch leatherbacks. First of all, they're really tough turtle to handle, and secondly,
Right.
uh, they're, that means that hook or that pot is not catching what they need to catch. And then on
Right.
top, with a big, 7 foot long pistol.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um, so, so it's, from that standpoint, um, I wish I could answer your question. I'm pretty sure the Sonic stuff never went anywhere, or
Mm-hmm.
we'd be hearing about it and seeing it being
Right. Yeah. What about the
used.
green light stuff? Because that was something that I saw in another piece of media, like little green lights being attached to. I don't know if
Yeah,
they were purse signs or what kind of a net it was, but
and,
yeah.
they've been using that down in Mexico.
Uh huh.
Uh, that, and looking at, let's see, ultraviolet, I think. Um,
Oh. Okay.
these animals see really well in the green spectrum,
Uh huh.
green to green blue,
Right.
and
And
so
that's one of the reasons why we use red.
yeah,
Why you use red lights on the
yeah,
beach, right?
they don't see red very well, or the red yellow range.
Yeah.
It has to be pretty bright before it's a problem. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why we use red light. Yeah, and that's true for
Yeah.
the other species too. The other sea turtle
Right.
species. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. That kind of I would love to be able to ask this question to somebody who focuses on marine turtle phylogeny, which I know is not your area of expertise, but having being so familiar with their anatomy and their physiology and everything, what is your general feeling? What's your hot take on how closely related leatherbacks are to the other marine turtles, to the coloniids, the hard shells? Do you think they diverged way, way back in the Cretaceous, or do you think it may have been more recent than that?
Uh, Good
I know
question.
it's a tricky one.
Now, let me tell you what I'm familiar with.
Yeah,
So, and I'll let you define which period that
sure,
is.
yeah, yeah,
So when you look at the ancestry to leatherbacks, where we
uh-huh,
confident where the fossil record is telling us that these were leatherbacks, and they've been around for somewhere in the 110 million years range.
uh-huh,
Some people say 107, some people say 115, somewhere in that range. That's
sure,
kind of their ancestry. Whereas the colonids are, so that's again the hard shell,
yeah, yeah,
all of the species we have extant today are
mm-hmm,
not, the oldest one is probably the green turtle, and that's about 60 million years old.
mm-hmm,
So I kind of, my point of reference is, when was that big meteoritic, uh,
yeah.
you know,
That was 66 million years ago. We've got that pretty well dated
yeah,
now. Yeah,
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 and yeah, so basically everything we have today pretty much arose after that.
mm-hmm,
But they didn't come out of nowhere.
yeah,
So they weren't, freshwater turtles that became marine. They weren't at that point. They all had ancestors that existed before that, uh,
mm-hmm,
million year.
right,
Point.
yeah,
And so if you were to look at the fossils that came from 67 million years or 70 million years ago, there were definitely hard-shelled, um,
mm-hmm,
I think the Thalassocales, or
yeah,
Thalassocale lineage seems to be at the very least closely related to the hard shells, but they didn't make it through that extinction event.
right,
Uh,
yeah. You get the toxiceliids as well that don't seem to make it out of the Cretaceous, and
yeah,
yeah, it's really interesting. I know that leatherbacks have been kind of a mystery phylogenetically for a long,
yeah,
long time.
but their lineage has been separate for quite a while.
Right, yeah. And as I understand it, there's even some debate whether they might have a separate marine origin from the Kalanian turtles. It's not the consensus view nowadays, but it's still like a possibility that they may have gone marine separate from, like, the last ancestor they had with the Kalanian sea turtles may have been terrestrial. So this is something I'm eager to talk about with, turtle paleontologists in the coming
Yeah,
year.
yeah,
But they're
yeah,
they're just such an incredible unique animal nowadays that I love that we still don't really have a firm understanding of when exactly they diverged and how closely related are they to other turtles because they're just so different. So I
yeah.
I find that really fascinating.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm glad, because that's
Yeah.
what, when the people that are fascinated by that, somebody's going to be looking at the fossil record
Mhm.
and see something that they didn't see before.
Mhm.
And most of the time you see something you didn't see before, and it's interesting, and it might have this much relevance, but every once in a while you get something that's like, oh, wait a minute.
Right. Helps you rethink the whole body of knowledge that came before. Yeah. Um kind of on this same theme, I want to ask if there's any particularly mysterious things about Dermacheliots, about leatherbacks that that you would really like to see elucidated. What are some mysteries that you'd like to see solved about these animals?
Okay, so there's several.
Uh huh.
Um, we, we for the longest time knew virtually nothing about where little leatherbacks go. So if
Right.
you're
The lost years. Yeah.
when you're talking about conservation earlier,
Yeah.
um, we need turtles coming back to nest. We need genetic diversity. So
Hmm.
some of the mysteries are, uh, you know, where are the boys coming from right now? Um,
Right. Yeah.
yeah, so so that's that, that in itself is an important mystery. But also, when you're looking at conservation and you're only looking at the adults and you're only looking at the nests, there's an awful lot of biology in between those two places.
Oh yeah.
So, uh, And that biology is probably important. Like, if you had a kid, and you saw it in the crib, and then you didn't see it again until as an adult. It's like, well, what have you been doing for the last 20
Right.
years of your life? Um, so there's some of the tagging is starting to tell us, well, why didn't there are records if you go back into the literature from when there was for a while there were I guess wealthy European uh, folks who were funding expeditions to go collect animals and to
Sure.
dock the oceans, and that when you go back and read some of that literature, what you see is, well, we found this loggerhead sitting on in this mat on in this temperature water, and
Hmm.
so there was some hints as to where the little hard shells were showing up.
Right.
And the exception to that seems to be the little flat-back turtles in Australia, but
Oh,
those are
interesting.
yeah, that's the
Okay.
seventh species that we don't get to see very often.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
but leatherbacks, I mean, there would be an occasional juvenile leatherback, stranding in Australia. There would
Huh.
be the occasional little leatherbacks showing up in Florida, but I mean, you could count them on two hands.
Right. They're just so
And
rare when they're that particular
yeah,
growth
and
stage. That
with
range, I guess. Yeah. Yeah.
ranges. And but knowing where the dead ones were doesn't necessarily tell you where the live ones are. And
Right.
so
Yeah.
some of this tagging work is starting to tell us that. I would
Hmm.
love to know, you know, so we have to wait till they're big enough to carry a tag. I would love
Hmm.
to know when, we've got this size going out, what happens, what happens when they're this size? Because at that point they've outgrown their tags. When we put a tag on them, they have to be able to shed it without us being there.
Right.
So that's part of being a good, not only a good scientist, but a good, um, you know, good person. You don't want to
Right. Yeah. Having
saddle
a
saddle
conscience.
these
Yeah.
feral species with a backpack that's gonna, warp their spine or something like that.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that's one of the things we do in the lab ahead of time is we are really trying to make sure that we test these attachments so we know that eventually they're going to fall off on their own, and they're
Hmm.
not going to they that's one of the criteria we have to use is not only can they swim normally, because
Hmm.
if they can't, you're getting junk data. Can they feed themselves normally? Again, you got to make sure you're not getting junk data. And will that tag fall off on its own and not be a hindrance? Well,
Uh-huh.
you don't want them, you know, coming across something and becoming entangled, or have it flopping around like a fishing lure. You want it
Right.
to get cleanly, and so that's part of the kind of that weird my my weird talent, sticking stuff to turtles and making sure it falls off. Uh,
Right. I've seen some of your talks about this, and it's totally fascinating. Just all the different creative ways that you've tried to affix these tags, get them to stay on firmly, but also be able to come off when they need to come off. It seems like a delicate balance that you've got to achieve there.
oh yeah, yeah, but that's again one of the advantages of being able to have in the lab for a while. We would
Right.
never be able to do, uh, I would never be able to say with confidence that I've put a tag on that's going to stay long enough to tell us something.
Hmm.
Um, I'd love to have a tag that stayed on for more than 30 days or more than 70 days.
Hmm.
We're getting as we learned over time. I mean, one of the things we learned about the shedding was shedding scales, was finding out that, oh, by the way, this is about the time the turtles shed scales. And so
Right. Yeah.
yeah, those tags aren't cheap. So anytime you miniaturize anything, it's not cheap.
Uh-huh.
So I mean, I think they're up around $1,700 or more, depending on if they're measuring depth too. So it's
Oh
a lot of
boy.
money. Yeah.
Well, that's something I wanted to ask about too. Here on Twitch, given that this is largely like a video game streaming platform, it's not what I
Yeah.
do, but that's what most people do on Twitch. There's a lot of very tech savvy and technology interested people in the chat. Um, what sorts of new technologies would you love to see come online in the next few years that would help you with your work? if there's somebody who's like just starting off in their career in tech and they really want to help make the world a better place,
Yeah.
what could they do that would contribute to uh, our understanding of marine turtles?
Yeah, well, I think there's several things.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I think one of them is, well, let's start with tagging since I've been working on
Yeah.
that. You know, I've been very lucky to have my colleagues, um, both at University of Central Florida and at National Marine Fisheries Service, and now and then we with Upwell Turtles, which is in
Right.
again focusing on all the sea turtles, but a lot with leatherbacks.
Uh-huh.
And so those, and then we've been able to work with, different companies. So the work that Kate Mansfield and I did, we were working with microwave telemetry. They're the first ones to
Oh, cool.
miniaturizing tags for us and making them pressure sensitive.
Uh-huh.
Um, and that was 15 years ago or so. And it's still a good tag. It's giving you water temperature and it's giving you location.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then another company called Low Tech. That name is, for a high tech company. That's based
Right,
on
yeah.
the founder's name.
Uh-huh.
Um, anyway, I bugged them for about 6 years saying, because they would come to the conferences we were at, and I'd say,
Oh,
when are you going
cool.
to make a little tag? And
Uh-huh.
because a lot of their work is with birds. Bird people work on birds have the same weight
Right.
problem, you
Uh-huh.
know, that we have working with turtles. And so they finally adapted that. And I have to say that, we've been very lucky uh, to work with them. And now there's several other companies. I think Wildlife
Mm-hmm.
Computers is trying to miniaturize some of their successful tags. So there's, at least three companies that have good credentials. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure I'm omitting some that I haven't worked with yet, but they, they're so somebody new who has new ideas.
Mm-hmm.
You can start from scratch, or you can you know go with experts and say who
Sure.
already worked out a lot of the details and see if you can be an innovator in a company like one of those. I mean, that would be one of my recommendations. Um,
Okay.
so other things. I mean, one of the things that's a challenge for leatherbacks in general is they have really lousy hatching success. On
Oh.
globally, it's about 50%.
Uh-huh.
We think we know some of the problems, but we
Mm-hmm.
certainly don't know all of them. One of them for the longest time was this question about fertility, and
Mm-hmm.
um, I have one of my students has been working on fertility, and it doesn't look like fertility is a problem for any of those species, at least at this point.
Uh-huh.
Um, so something is dying either early in development or they die late, very late in development. So,
Uh-huh.
uh, measuring it would be great if we could measure oxygen in the nest, um,
Interesting. Okay.
moisture in a way that's relevant to an egg.
Uh-huh.
Um, so, they don't take in liquid water, they're using water
Right.
vapor.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and whenever you're talking about temperature and moisture together, you're talking, those two go hand in hand. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I, too much CO2, being produced by the egg.
Uh-huh.
You as our beaches warm, are they, the bacterial and fungal communities are changing.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so do we now have pathogens? And you may say, well, these animals had lousy hatching success before. Yeah, they did. Um,
Mm-hmm.
is there something about the more limited genetic pool? Um, there's
Oh.
no, there's sort of kind of biotech perspectives that we,
Right, yeah.
you know, I don't have a good handle on what's enough genetic diversity. I mean, there are calculations that most people learn whether they want to or not
Mm-hmm.
in
What's your
basic.
minimum population number that's
Yeah, but
sustainable and all of this? Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
based on mammals.
Uh-huh.
So, it's to base it on on mammal populations, and then you might be able to apply it to birds. But um, holy cow, it's
Right,
not
yeah.
something that lays 80 eggs at a time,
Uh-huh.
and does it, I think, I'm trying to remember what I think, somewhere 6 to 8 nests in a season, and then you don't see them for a few years.
Hmm.
Um, and they come back then, do it all over again, and only half the eggs hatch if you're lucky. Sometimes you open up a clutch to do an inventory and every single egg hatched, and you go, wow,
Huh.
wow, that's the exception. And
Right.
there's sometimes when you open up a clutch and nothing is hatched, and
Uh,
that's depressing, and it smells bad too.
yeah,
So,
I can imagine.
so
Yeah.
yeah,
So there's lots of different ways that people could get involved with leatherback conservation aside from doing like the biology part of it.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
that's yeah. I want to. One of my big goals for this year is to try and get people really excited about these animals and try to get them to think about how they might be able to actually help out with leatherback conservation in creative ways that a lot of other folks aren't thinking about. So I appreciate that input there. That's I hope folks are at least a little bit inspired to start thinking about this.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, and I
Yeah,
mean, that the open mind is kind of I think going to be the key to thinking about make how to make up for the bad stuff we've done, not personally, but uh, across the
collectively as a species, like what we as human beings have done to this planet. Yeah, no,
yeah.
I totally agree. I mean, I think this is such a remarkable animal, and we deserve to have creatures like this in the world alongside us. You know, if they disappear, like what does that say about us? Um, it's just it'd be a huge moral failing. So
Yes,
I
very well put. Well put.
thank you. Yeah. Before we wrap up here, thank you again so much for your time. We really, really appreciate this. Um, what a privilege.
Well,
How would you recommend folks at home learn more about leatherbacks if they're starting to, really appreciate these animals? How should they continue in learning about them?
okay, so there's several things they can do. There's a book on leatherback biology. I usually have it. Yeah, it's called
Is
the
it this
leather.
one here?
Yeah, yes, that's a good place.
Uh huh.
If you're not into the more um that's a science book.
Yeah.
There's this book which is uh you can buy
Oh,
that on
neat.
Amazon. I will tell you it's a blatant plug. His husband wrote the book. His name's Michael Salmon.
I don't
But
have this one yet. I'm gonna have to check it out. That sounds great.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
you can buy it from BookBaby um or Amazon. Sometimes Amazon runs out.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a company called BookBaby. But anyway, this is a collection of essays and they're all short. So, you don't have to
Nice. Okay.
read it and some of it's about leatherback, some of it's about the other
Mm-hmm.
species, some of it's about the kind of the history of thinking about how we learn about turtles.
Right.
So that's kind of fun stuff. Um, and so reading is really good. There's
Mm-hmm.
a there's the annual sea turtle symposium. If
Right. Yeah. I'm kicking
international,
myself for not having gotten on this sooner because I would have loved to have been able to go. It's a little too
yeah.
late for that now. Yeah.
I think this year it's in Hawaii. Next year we expect it to be in Saudi Arabia. And
Oh
that's
wow.
yeah, the Red Sea is often described as a soup bowl of turtles. They have 5 species. 5 of the 7
Uh-huh.
species are in those waters.
Does that include leatherbacks?
But
It must, right?
yeah, they don't nest there.
Yeah, yeah. Because they're
Only in
not
the
going to have the flat back and they're not going to have the whichever Ridley it is in the Atlantic. I forget.
but they have the others, which is
Right. Yeah. Very cool.
it's also I had an opportunity to go there for a conference a few years ago and
Uh-huh.
realize how long the Red Sea is. It's the
Right.
degrees of latitude those animals move across is mind-boggling.
Uh-huh.
So I think that's where it is next year. I haven't heard the definite part, but
Mm-hmm.
uh, the supposition is going to be in Saudi Arabia. Um,
Interesting. Okay.
yeah, so yes, so conferences. There's places where you can go and see the turtles nest.
Mm-hmm.
In the U.S., sea turtle nesting tourism is pretty much focused around the loggerhead, but
Right.
the same beaches are where the leatherbacks go.
Mm-hmm.
The Marine Lab that I am the director of is we have this visitors gallery. Um, and right next door to us is a nature center, the Gumbo Limbo Nature Center in Boca Raton, Florida.
I've heard very good things. Yeah.
Yeah, well, good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I mean, during, like I say, our we don't have people down on the working floor because it is a research facility, but
Uh-huh.
you know, 20 feet above us, 20, try again, 10 to 12 feet above us is this open, we call it a visitors gallery. It's like a hallway with lots of information on it. And there's no glass between, well, there's glass between the little kid level so that
Sure.
nobody falls down.
Yeah.
But people can talk to us. We don't have to have a microphone or anything like that. We talk to people all the time.
That's
Uh,
such cool outreach. That's really, really neat. Yeah.
yeah,
Just breaking down the boundary between science and the public. I love that.
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's to me, that's really important.
Yeah.
And then there are, and I'm just talking about the ones I'm familiar with. And certainly other places in Trinidad and Tobago, there's uh,
Yeah.
big leatherback nesting beach,
Mm-hmm.
and that there you can see leatherback
Yeah.
nesting.
With
Yeah,
nature seekers. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
nature seekers. Yeah,
really cool organization. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and if you're a sailor or out in the ocean and you spot one, write it down and
Yeah.
report it to whether it's your the equivalent of your we have the National Marine Fisheries Service, which is um, responsible for the animals, the recovery of the animals in um, when I say recovery, I'm talking about the population level recovery from
Right.
it.
Yeah.
Um, information, and if you spot a dead one, report it.
Yeah.
We all pretty much have our GPS with us these days,
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and it's that's so it's not hard to get a photo
Mm-hmm.
these days and forward it on. I mean, there's certainly in Australia there's a National Marine Fisheries Service. There's a in New Zealand as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. And I always try to encourage folks in the audience too to get on apps like iNaturalist
oh
because
yeah, yeah, that was
it's
awesome.
I mean, it's just a cool way to enrich your daily life too, to be aware of these living things around you and be able to keep track of who's who, and you learn
Yeah,
so much by doing that. I'll probably talk about that a little bit when we're done with this interview. I'll extol the virtues of iNaturalist because
yeah,
it's such a cool project. And
yes, it is.
do you get sightings reported of leatherbacks through iNaturalist? Like, do you pay attention to that?
I have to say I barely keep up with my life.
Right.
So I have iNaturalist. I do use it.
Uh-huh.
Um, but I don't I use it, as a voyeur trying to, whether it's identifying birds or plants
Yeah.
or lizards. We get like three skinks around here that all look the
Nice.
same. And I'm
Uh-huh.
pretty good with herps, but it's like, oh, or people will send pictures and say, "Oh, this is a viper," and I'm going, "No," that
Right. Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
so so part of it is if I have an opportunity to keep somebody from chopping a head off of a snake,
Yeah.
um, I can I will do my best and say, "Oh, by the way, you don't have to wait for somebody to respond. Go get on iNaturalist." Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, it's I am absolutely a fan. So
Awesome. Yeah. Uh, before we before I let you go, is there anything that you'd like to plug? How can people support your work, and how can they learn more about what you do?
oh yeah, so we have a couple different ways. One is that we the Florida Atlantic University goes by the initials FAU. And if you were to Google up FAU Marine Science Lab,
Mm-hmm.
we have a web page that we keep up to date. And we also have, I have a program for students, the FAU students that involves not just biologists, but students in communication and theater and,
Very cool.
that how to talk to artists. I also have some artists in the past. I don't have any right now, but how to explain science. Because if we, sometimes as scientists we've got our blinders on and
Right.
forget that not everybody has a science background.
Mm-hmm.
So So I've been able to work with private foundations to get students paid to learn how to be science communicators. And
Nice. That's so important.
oh, it's incredibly important.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's that program is the um, uh, I'm trying to think. I think it's linked through our. I'm pretty sure it's linked through our website.
Okay,
Um,
yeah. We'll do some hunting around after this and we'll make sure we
yeah,
find it. Yeah.
and so there's that. There's the if you were to Google up Jeanette Wyneken at Florida Atlantic University, you would probably be led directly to my website, and towards the bottom we have a donate button, which takes you to
Right.
the Nelligan Fund.
I've got that
Nelligan,
right here too in the chat. Yeah.
yeah. So the Nelligan Fund is was started by a gentleman who had retired and lived on the beach, or lived on a condo on the beach. He
hmm
wasn't wealthy, but he got to know the students who were out patrolling the beach and inventorying nests, and thought, well, that's really neat. And long before I got to Florida Atlantic University, he left a little bit of money to start a fund, and
That's awesome.
we've kept it
Yeah.
going because it's exactly the kind of thing. Not only does it support the sea turtle research and they're maintaining the essential parts of the lab for the turtles. It also helps support students. So my students and my colleague students who come through and want do, whether it's honors project as undergrads or
hmm
projects as graduate students. Those are all, all of those projects, by the nature of how sea turtles research is permitted, they have to have a conservation component to them. You can't just say,
Right.
wow, I wonder why their eyelids are shaped the way they are. That may be
Yeah.
interesting to some people, but you better have a conservation component to whatever you're doing. And that's what, so I can say with confidence that throughout my career, I've always had to have a conservation implication to
hmm
what we've done, and still do. And that's where the Nelligan Fund comes in helping to support those new ideas. And so yeah, so I mean, the website is good. And of course, I'm happy to share my email address, and if somebody want, or my website, either one. And I think you've got both, so if you want to throw
hmm
those there,
Excellent.
that's fine with me. I answer questions pretty regularly.
I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us today. And, all too often researchers overworked, underpaid, and like kind of discouraged from talking to the public. So I really appreciate your gameness for all of this. Thank you so much, Dr. Wyneken. Really
Oh,
appreciate your
thank
time.
you. Thank you
Yeah,
very much for having me on. Really
yeah.
appreciate it.
I
This
know
is
the chat
fun.
has really enjoyed it too. So yeah, we're all very grateful. And with that, I'll let you get on with your evening. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Take care.
All right, you too. Bye bye.